So, guys, I'm torn, because if there's any one thing that I really dislike doing with my reviews, it's using them to overhype a film. For myself, I often find that I enjoy a film as much as I did because I walked into it with tempered expectations. But on the other side of that coin, I also want to communicate honestly how I felt about M. Night Shyamalan's most recent film, Split. So let's just put it this way. The biggest twist of this film was that its writer and director was back, and in fine form, though, to be completely frank, I've almost always, at the very least, appreciated Shyamalan's films, The Last Airbender really being the only entry that was truly unwatchable. Because as a good friend of mine once said, this filmmaker couldn't be boring if he tried. His voice, both in his writing and his directing, always distinctly and intentionally and confidently creative and unique, and just filled with his one-of-a-kind quirk, charm, and heart. But what separated Split from his lesser films was, well, initially difficult to put my finger on, because in a lot of ways this film attempted to do what films like The Happening and After Earth attempted to do. But simply put, the attempts made in those latter two films just didn't work. From their most visual elements, like the acting and cinematography, all the way down to the cores of those films themselves, their narrative structures and their thematic focuses. But with Split, from those elements that are on the film's surface all the way down to those found at its core, Shyamalan, time and again, succeeded, crafting not so much a jump-out-of-your-seat horror film with scares every other minute, as its marketing rather unhelpfully suggested, but a slow-burn thriller with a compelling group of characters at its center. And to focus first on those more visible elements, just watching the way that this director used his camera so clearly heralded his love of cinema. He would quite often in scenes either have very minimalistic dialogue or forego it completely, choosing instead to, with the framing of a shot or the directing of a camera move, capture the story, the conflict, the characters, and their desires. And that camera work, as well as the editing, were also just so very patient, constantly allowing the viewer to just drink in what was on screen, as well as frequently reassess what it meant. And that patience, as well as a really bold use of point of view, where the director would actually show exactly what a specific character was seeing, helped us, the viewer, to track with this intentionally busy and fractured plot, and more wholly relate to the character's terror, shock, confusion, etc. Without a doubt, though, so much of this film really did hang on James McAvoy's skills as an actor, and I say that in no way to belittle Shyamalan's aforementioned triumphs. It's just, with this film specifically, no matter how brilliant his cinematography or direction, Shyamalan's film would have completely come off the rails had McAvoy not so wholly thrown himself in to this role, knowing when and how to embrace his director's fun, larger-than-life sensibilities, and also when and how to play things with a more grounded sincerity that was both relatable as well as chilling. As brilliant as McAvoy's 23 different personalities were, and as much contagious fun as he was clearly having with them, he actually quite evenly shared the spotlight with Anya Taylor-Joy's Cassie. In her case, though, it actually took me pretty much the entire first act to really warm to her character. But upon reflection, that too felt very intentional, Shyamalan wanting to initially present a character that we, the audience, would judge to be little more than a moody, antisocial teenager, only to be revealed later after her layers had been peeled back as a much more sympathetic and identifiable young woman. And Taylor-Joy very successfully portrayed both of those aspects, capturing something that felt quite honest and real. And after the nearly unmitigated disaster that was The Happening, it was just great to see Betty Buckley given another chance in a Shyamalan film. A chance that I thought really did pay off. There was just something so instantly likable about the character. Compassionate and intelligent, but also broken in her own way. A woman who had sacrificed so much of her own life for the lives of her patients. Where this film succeeded most, though, and what each of those beautiful shots and outstanding performances rested upon, was the really layered and extremely balanced screenplay from Mr. M. Night Shyamalan. And that, for me, was what most clearly showcased the filmmaker's return to form, because there were so many different tones, characters, plot lines, and personalities in this film, and it could have easily felt as fractured and as split as the lead character's mind. But Shyamalan almost never lost sight of his goal, a goal that was so much more than provide a few thrills and chills. No, he designed every moment, whether suspenseful or humorous, to reveal something about his characters and provide a unique perspective into those characters' fears and desires. Indeed, as much as Shyamalan is known for his hyper-imaginative plots, hair-raising thrills, and very dramatic twists, for me, what's always been the most enjoyable about his films have been their really excellent explorations of humanity. The reason that I engaged with and enjoyed The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Signs, and even The Village as much as I did was the very wonderful human stories at their core. A frightened son struggling to connect with his mother, a numb husband seeking to rekindle his marriage, a broken father struggling to live after the death of his wife, a daughter and fiancé attempting to hold together the world and man that she'd grown to love. And Split presented, once again, another story with that kind of focus on humanity, to the extent that, by the film's end, just like The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, it didn't matter if it had a twist or not, because emotionally and narratively it was building to something different. And all of the best Shyamalan films, even if you remove the twist, are incredibly satisfying stories for the same reason. So, in the end, I've got to say, I was immensely satisfied to see Shyamalan back and making a film that I can now wholeheartedly endorse. And what's more, it didn't take him abandoning everything that I'd come to love about his earlier films, just kind of this humble rediscovery of what made those films magical, which was quite appropriately captured in the cameo that he gave himself in this film, especially as compared to the part that he wrote for himself in Lady in the Water. And for all of these reasons, I will give the film a 4 out of 5 and a heart. I would still love to know what you guys thought of the film, though, so definitely comment below and let me know. Also, definitely be hypersensitive of spoilers. I feel like this film really would be ruined quite a bit if you were to spoil it for other people, so please be very aware of that in the comments below. And finally, please do subscribe. I'm going to continue to review films and television on this channel, and I would love for you to stay up to date on all of those things. But for now, I'm Chris Hartwell. This is The Heartbeat. Thank you for joining me.